Hey, welcome to the Ferguson Home. Today we're doing something a little different called the Ferguson Home Unscripted. So we don't have any kind of outline or script to this conversation. We are just going to ask each other questions. So I've got my 3 questions on my card. Barry's got her 3. And so for part 1 of the video, we will ask each other one question and just see where the conversation goes. And then we'll follow up with part 2 and part 3 as we ask these other questions to each other. So we hope you enjoy today's video.
Welcome to the Ferguson Home. We're so excited that you're joining us. If you are liking these videos, we're going to just remind you every time to please subscribe, because that lets us know to keep doing it. And that's really the only way that we know that we've got people on the other end watching these videos. And comment. We love to get your comments and let us know what you're needing to hear about. And we would love to do a video on that.
Awesome. Number 1 question on my card. Are you ready?
No, I'm not ready. I'm so nervous.
This question should not surprise you. Again, this is totally unscripted, so we don't know what each other's going to ask, and we haven't prepped any answers. And
this might be the last one of these we ever do.
Be patient with us on this one. Why does my wife not want to have sex with me? So that's the number 1 question we get from husbands. I guess they're pursuing their wives and they feel some sense of rejection or she's not interested. Why is that, Barie Sue?
I'm thankful that you started out with a light one. That's very kind of you. Just jump right to sex. Okay, so there are many reasons why it might come across that a wife doesn't want to have sex. Could be that she's had kids clinging to her on her body all day long, and her body is screaming out for no touching. To recover from the day. And so sometimes it can be as simple as that, just to remember what stage of life are you in. And if it is a really physically draining season, then that's just a common reaction to our bodies needing to shut down almost and just not have any touch, the stimulation. And so in those cases, I would say just to really be compassionate, to understand where she's coming from, and maybe let her know ahead of time, hey, I'd really, I'm not saying to plan it, even though sometimes people need to do that, but you might let her know as you're putting the kids, you might offer, hey, I'm going to put the kids to bed tonight. I'm going to give them their baths. I'm going to put them to bed to give you a break, because I'm really looking forward to us having time together tonight. Wink, wink, whatever. Whatever, to let her know, like, hey, I'm going to give you the space that I know you need, and I want to help so that you have energy for me at night. So sometimes just remember a season of life, and then help think through what are some things you could do to get her ready to want to have sex in the evening. So if she's working all day, or she's with the kids all day, and then she cooks dinner, and then she's doing the laundry, and then she's giving baths, and then she's putting the kids to bed, just imagine that, like, every person needs a break at some point. And so if she's doing all of that and then gets to 10 o'clock at night, and that's the first time she's had for a break, well, sex probably isn't going to be the first thing. So yeah, that's one answer. I would say another answer could be that your wife, her background might make it to where sex is just really hard to think of as a good thing. And so I would say sit down with each other and make sure you know each other's past. Sometimes it can be that a wife, you can be married and be years into your marriage before something triggers a memory, and then you go back to realize, wait, there is abuse in my past, and that now I see all the ramifications, or some of the ramifications, and definitely that's going to affect your sex life with your spouse. And so that's a huge one. And if your wife has experienced any type of abuse, then sex is going to be hard for her to want to engage in that. And so I would say if that's the case and you sit down and talk, there's so many people available to help in that area. And I did recently come back from a conference, and they kept saying the same thing, that these are women who'd been abused, and said, our soul will not be healed on this side of eternity. And that stuck with me, that even with all the help you can go get, just to really be compassionate, to know if that's your wife's story, it is going to affect your physical intimacy, and just to be very gracious and to help redeem her view of sex. And that is that's a great I don't want to say responsibility, but that's just an awesome opportunity for you as her husband to help redeem all the past that's been broken in that area. So, yeah, and then it can be because the wife is just, we've given ourselves to so many other people. I remember a time in our marriage where I was saying yes to every play date and just I kept myself busy all day. And it was good because that helped my sanity during the day. But then by the time that Keith got home, and I was so exhausted because I had poured out all my words to my friends and given all my energy and my mental energy. And so really it came down to I had just pursued the wrong things and said yes to the wrong things that were good things, but they weren't the best. And I wasn't saving my energy for my spouse. And so in that case, I would just say, y'all dialogue about that, and wife, if that's you, to be honest and confess that. And then to talk about what are some changes we can make so that I do have energy for you and for our marriage and our physical intimacy by the end of the day. So those are just off the top of my head. It's a big question. Good.
Well, and what I hear you saying is it's not just a physical issue. So what I guess I would say to the husbands is remember that your wife is a person and she's bringing everything from her day to the bedroom, everything from her past, everything going on with her spiritually, emotionally, and all that. And so I think sometimes where guys mess up is they, because men can do this, can kind of separate sex from everything else, you know? Yeah. And so it's just a reminder, like,
we can't do that.
No, sexual intimacy, especially for a woman, is tied to how everything else is going in the relationship and how she's doing emotionally and physically and all those things. And so, so I part of it for me, I guess, is just saying, wouldn't you agree that it's important to really care for the relationship so that then sexual intimacy is a positive thing in the relationship?
For sure. And to not immediately feel rejection and that it has to do with you and then to retreat, because then a wife will start thinking, well, he doesn't want sex because he's not pursuing me. So if you go from pursuing your wife to you just stop, she might not know it's because she has given you this sense of rejection, you know?
Well, you and I have talked about that a lot because we've experienced that, and then we've seen other couples where we talk about this and it really resonates with them, where a husband a little bit kind of has his pride hurt a little bit, you know, because, hey, I try to pursue my wife and she's stiff-armed me for whatever reason, you know, all the things you just talked about. And then he gets his pride wounded a little bit. It's like, well, fine, if you're not going to be intimate with me, then, you know, I'm not going to pursue you or whatever, you know.
And then payback,
and then that cycle, it just gets so dysfunctional. And so, part of it is a man, like, being patient and then recognizing, like, if not the right time for her to be intimate, like, to what you just said, not stop pursuing her, like, keep pursuing her in the relationship, you know.
Yeah, and there's times where I'm so tired, like I feel like my body is so tired and I can't get there, like I just know it, and but to let you know in that moment, like, hey, I love you and I really want to have sex tonight, but I'm exhausted, so can we, are you okay if we wait a night, you know? But just to acknowledge, hey, I know that you want to, this is where I'm at, I like it too, you know.
Yeah, that means a lot to me when you say, like, I do want this in our relationship, but I just, for whatever reason, I'm struggling right now, and so, you know, can we postpone it? And so just to know that it's like not a, I don't want to ever have sex with you again, you know, kind of thing. So, well, good.
Okay. Ready for your question?
Do it. Let's go.
I'm starting out. You got with a hard one. Okay. I should just ask number 3 first because it goes without. Okay. Why does it seem like all my husband, not you, I'm just asking this for a person.
Sure.
All my husband thinks about is sex. Interesting.
Or you say that because that's the first question I asked.
Yes.
Well, I think, so my impression of that is that, you know, in general, a woman's sex drive, now this is a huge generality, and there's exceptions to this in every relationship, because we've talked to couples where the woman's sex drive is stronger than the man.
And it changes based on your season of life, your year.
For sure.
How
so
old you are.
Forgive the overgeneralization, but I think in general, men's testosterone level is higher, and so that causes them to have a stronger sex drive than women do, you know. And so I read an article, it was years ago, where a woman had some kind of medical issue where she had to take testosterone, and like she said in the article something like, man, I get it now, you know, like how men think, or, you know, how, because it just had changed so much in her body. And so Yeah, the fact that your husband, has that strong sex drive, thinks about sex with you, like, I think we have to be careful to say that's not negative. Like, part of that is saying God wired a man differently than he wired a woman, and those are good things. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, a man can take that drive and he can be very destructive with it, whether he gets into pornography or affairs or whatever. So what you do with how you're wired, like, that's on you. You're responsible for that. But I'm just saying, in general, I think it's important for a wife in the marriage relationship to not look at her husband and say, oh, he really wants sex with me, he's a pervert. Like, to really look down on him because of that, because that's how he's wired, And so we see scriptures where it talks about, like, let the wife of your youth satisfy you always, and, enjoy her physical body. Song of Solomon, Proverbs talks a lot about that.
I think it says, let her breasts satisfy you always.
Well, okay, we wasn't going to go there, but the scripture is very clear about the goodness of sexual intimacy within the marriage relationship. And in 1 Corinthians 7 that talks about the whole idea of, like, don't withhold it from each other for a long period of time, except for prayer and fasting, and then come back together so you won't be tempted. Like, it's a good gift that God's given you in the marriage relationship. So, I think the first thing I think I'm trying to say is that it's, for a wife to understand her husband is wired differently is a good thing. And to recognize, like what you said earlier, it might drive you crazy sometimes. You and I've talked about that, like, please stop touching me. But at the same time, when it stops, then that's a problem too, and then wives will say to us, like, why is my husband not interested in me anymore or pursuing me? Like, something's wrong. So I guess what I'm trying to say is when we look at scripture, we see, God has created us the way, we are, with those desires and those hormones and all those things in our bodies. He wants us to use them a certain way. And what we see in scripture is he wants men to focus that sexual energy into the marriage relationship. On their spouse. And so I think with that, it's like, if you're a wife and you have a very negative view of that, like, if you're consistently saying, like, why are you always thinking about sex, or why do you want to touch me, or why do you want to be with me physically, or whatever, just remember, like, he's commanded by God to focus that energy into the marriage relationship, and you would be more offended if he focused that energy a different direction,
Right.
And so I think partly what I'm saying there is, what I would encourage all the wives to really process is to say, like, can I recognize that my husband's different and respect those differences rather than demean him or belittle him because he's wired differently than me? Like, that's a big deal. Is that good?
Mm-hmm. And I just always think about the how men and women enter just being intimate with each other through different doors, and how, so the first door that a man typically enters is through the physical, whereas a woman typically enters into being connected through the emotional door, emotional connection. And so really, you're both pursuing the same goal, and that is to be one and to be connected with each other. But it's going to look different how you start the process. And so you wouldn't be offended if your husband came to you wanting to just sit and chat to connect emotionally.
Right.
So to try to have that same outlook when they pursue you and enter into connection through the physical door and connecting physically.
And the visual door too.
Visual. Not to take that as a bad thing, because they are different than us. And so,
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I think if you don't understand those differences, then you can really miss each other.
And expect, like, you to be like me. And
exactly.
Me to be like
you and I have always said, like, that's the lie of, like, romance novels kind of portray men like they're women. They want to sit or soap operas. They want to sit and visit and talk all day, and they never have to go to work. And but that pornography really portrays women acting more like men, like they're the aggressor. They're the and so both men and women can get a skewed view of the opposite sex, where men can kind of they can look at their wife and kind of expect their wife to act like a man when that's not reality. And the same thing for a woman, like you're saying. So it's understanding those differences, and also just understanding how, kind of what you said earlier, your past and things you've experienced have messed up your view of that, and being able to acknowledge, like, I'm off on this for some reason, and I need to really be a student of my spouse and understand how they operate.
Yeah.